Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up from October 31st through November 6th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 shows, I watched 6 movies, and I listened to 2 books. I also wanted to mention, in case you didn't see it, I posted 3 videos this week. The first one is the Overwhelmed Book Tag, talking about creator burnout and all of those nice things, so that will be linked down below. I also posted my October wrap-up, where I talk about the 18 things I read in October. And then on Friday, I announced the 8th round of the Queer Lit Readathon. All of those videos will be linked down below. First on this list is A Curse in Ash. If you are familiar with Julie over at Pages and Pens, you have seen this cover before, because this is her witchy fae adult romance polyamory new book that just came out, and I loved it. And I'm not just saying that because I love Julie. I loved seeing a lot of the different aspects that were in this book. This book is told in 2 perspectives, the first one being Ashlyn and the second one being Rearden. Ashlyn lives in this small town where magic is very prevalent. It's very much like our world, except for kind of everybody knows that the fae exist, and to avoid certain versions of them at all costs. Ashlyn's a really good help for this because she is a witch, so she can cook up some different potions to help keep the fae away. But there are a lot of things about her that most people don't know, and a lot of that is revealed throughout the book, so I'm not going to tell you anything more. Rearden is from a small town in Ireland, and he's actually just moved to the same small town as Ashlyn because his aunt lives there. His parents both recently very tragically died. They were both Ravdis to these very powerful witches, and they ended up dying while they were in the line of duty. And a Ravdi is a human that doesn't have any magical powers of their own, but basically become bonded to a witch and really help that witch. Basically, it's like a Wi-Fi booster for magic. He's publicly said that if he's ever bonded with anyone, because being a Ravdi is hereditary, he is not going to take the bond. He is going to petition not to be bonded to a witch because he doesn't want the same thing that happened to his parents to happen to him, even though he has an older brother who is currently a Ravdi and is just telling him that it's fine. This is a very special, important thing to do in the magic world. He really wants nothing to do with it. From that opening description, you'd assume that there's only a couple of characters in this, but there's actually so many different characters, and you see them coming in and out of all of these different scenes. You'd think it'd be hard to keep track of them, but I actually found it pretty easy just because I could associate enough with each of the characters that I could remember, oh, this is this friend, or this is this friend, or that type of thing. Then of course it gets sexy, there's some conflict. This is the first in at least a trilogy, and I'm very excited to get to the next one. Next we have Nothing But Blackened Teeth, which is a novella that I read for NetGalley November. Going into this, I didn't realize it was a novella until I looked at it and was like, that's not a lot of pages. Okay, cool, this will be nice and short, and I read it in one sitting, I think. Definitely in one day, but I think the sittings were broken up by, you know, having to work. This is about a group of friends, and I say that because not everybody seems to like each other, who have been flown to Japan so that 2 of them can elope in a haunted house. And you might be guessing that it doesn't all go to plan, and you would be correct. This is very atmospheric and dark. It touched on a few different subjects that I was like, cool, it's in there, but it didn't, I don't know if it served the purpose of the story. In fact, talking about the mental health of the main character actually made me really misunderstand what was going on in the scene whatsoever, so I appreciated some mental health rep. I appreciated that our main character was bi. I appreciated that people of color were talking about how if this were a horror film, they would go first, so maybe they should leave. So ultimately, if you're looking to get creeped out but only want to read something very, very short, I recommend this one. On to the shows I watched, the first one being RuPaul's Drag Race UK. In this episode, they had a ball, so they had to put together 3 different looks with a time limit. The first look they had to put together in 69 minutes, the second look in 60 minutes, and the third look, I believe, in 30 minutes. That was definitely a new fun aspect that we haven't seen on a previous season, so that was interesting. I also watched this week's episode of Canada's Drag Race, which was the Snatch Game. The only thing I really worry about doing the Snatch Game so early in the season is there are a few different people that didn't get a lot of screen time during the actual Snatch Game, and it actually bothered me. I was like, did this person do well? Did they just not do well? Why aren't we seeing their reactions to the questions? And when it comes down to it, you just kind of understand that those are the ones that are going to be safe in the challenge later, and they had to edit it down for time. Whereas if they had done the Snatch Game with fewer people, you'd be able to see more of the reactions during the Snatch Game. I also watched the first 4 episodes of the 18th season of Grey's Anatomy, which is the current ongoing season. And it is set in a fictional universe in which COVID is done, and they make a point of putting it at the beginning of the very first episode saying that yes, we're going to pretend for the purposes of this show that it's over. It's not actually over in real life. Here are resources for that. And I really appreciated it because as much as I enjoyed the 17th season being so heavily focused on what is currently happening in the world, it's a little bit of personal pan pizza fatigue to also be living it and watching it. I also very much enjoy that Kate Walsh is back, at least for a few episodes, because I've missed her and it's nice to know how her life is going because her spin-off series ended ages ago. On Halloween, in between trick-or-treaters ringing the doorbell, we watched Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, and Ghostbusters. One of the big things that I learned from this experience is I don't think I ever saw the second Ghostbusters. I probably knew it was a thing, I just never got around to seeing it, so that one seemed pretty new to me. Something that came up when we were talking about cameos in the newer Ghostbuster film, going, oh, I wish Rick Moranis was in it, and I was like, he wasn't acting at this point. I don't know exactly when he retired so he could take care of his kids, but there was that, and basically all he's done recently is a phone commercial with Ryan Reynolds because Ryan Reynolds just really wanted to do a phone commercial with Rick Moranis. Ryan Reynolds, ultimate fanboy. If you've never seen these before, they're fun. Bill Murray's character in the first original Ghostbusters is just kind of a piece of garbage, and that definitely shows through more as you watch it as an adult in this year. And then of course the remake is hilarious. We actually ended up watching the extended versions where there were all these scenes that I had never seen before that I thought were hilarious. And I just really hate that a bunch of bros on the internet canceled this movie and said it was garbage before it was even released because girls can't have nice things, apparently. This week we also watched Jungle Cruise, and I say that as in we put it on, but then we were talking over it and having some wine, and then we would come back and be like, wait, that's a twist we didn't see coming. Or there were certain things that I saw coming, such as the interactions with this large cat. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. I foresaw where that was going. I even called it out, and my friends were very proud of me. We also spent a lot of time equating it to The Mummy because it's around that time frame, and it's also a woman-led expedition, basically, and some conflict between her and the guy she needs to help her. And given that that's Megan's favorite movie, it was fun to kind of make those parallels. To be able to comment anymore, I'd actually have to rewatch the movie because not a lot of this stuck because we didn't really actually watch it. We talked over a lot of it. This week also included the date the 5th of November, so obviously we watched V for Vendetta. This is set in a future dystopian London where everything that is not normal is cracked down upon. There are very strict rules. There's lots of problems, and then there's this one person who dresses in a Guy Fawkes mask and wants to change it. At first this is the type of thing where you don't think it's gonna get super violent, it's gonna get like slapsticky violent, where he kind of fights these bad guys that are about to attack Evie and he kind of knocks them out with like the back of his dagger and stuff like that. And then later, yeah, it's just very bloody and explosions and all of that type of thing. Also, the events of what happens during this are very traumatizing, and I don't know how I would understand the world anymore if I went through what Evie did. If you've never seen it before, I don't know how to explain it any more than that without major spoilers. This week we also watched Dune, and I spent most of the time trying not to fall asleep and then just equating this movie to being a mashup of Marvel and Star Wars. That's basically what I got out of it. Unpopular opinion? Maybe, but yeah, I spent 2.5 hours trying not to fall asleep. That was my experience with Dune. So glad I've never tried to read the book. I'm not saying that the performances were bad or anything like that, I'm just saying that I wasn't really interested in the story whatsoever. It's about this family who's taking over the mining operations of this substance called spice from another family because the Emperor said they had to. Spice is used not only as a hallucinogen for the people that actually live on that planet, but it's also used somehow for interstellar travel, which makes it very valuable, and obviously whoever controls the spice kind of controls things and can be very wealthy and that type of stuff. And my response to this was, I don't really care about your space colonialism. Sorry. The first book I listened to this week was White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a classic haunted house story, and I really enjoyed it. Marigold and her family move across the country to this new subdivision where they're actually going to be putting basically artists in residence. It's a pretty sweet gig because they put you up in this house that they've newly refurbished, and you get paid to basically live there and be an artist, and then your family can also live there. And after a while you can petition to actually take over the lease. So if you want to stay there more than the 3 years you're contracted for, you can actually end up owning your house. house. However, this is in a town where everything is incredibly run down. They have no neighbors on their street because all of these houses are too decrepit to actually hold people at this point, at least, you know, in the legal sense that we'd like to think about it. And then longtime residents of the area are kind of mad that this family is moving in. And then the slightly weird things start happening. Things tend to move around the house or disappear altogether. Doors close or open without anyone being there. And Marigold herself has some history as well as some mental health complications that make this incredibly intense for her. She really wishes she had some pot. That's the only way she could really keep it down, but she doesn't have a connection here. What I liked about this is we didn't get her full backstory right on page 1. We kind of had to wait throughout the book to find out why certain things were so harsh and why her parents were treating her in certain ways. In addition, she's in a blended family, so her mother and father have split. Her father is off in Japan doing an architecture thing. He's an architect. And her mom has married this white guy who has a daughter named Piper, and Piper is just kind of a pain in the ass. She's also one of those kids that's super manipulative and always hanging off her dad, and is just like, Dad, Marigold is smoking, and like, Marigold's not smoking, she's not doing literally anything. But she'll use this new imaginary friend she's come up with to blame things on Marigold. So this is interesting not only from a haunted house perspective, but also a mental health perspective, a blended family perspective. This had a lot to it, and I very much enjoyed it. The other book I listened to this week was All's Well. This is a reimagining of one Shakespeare play while the cast is putting on another Shakespeare play, and it also heavily has to do with chronic pain management. There were a few parts of this where I felt incredibly seen and or called out, mostly because I've been dealing with chronic pain on this side for years that I've just never seen a doctor about because I'm scared of them just saying that it's nothing. In fact, at the beginning of 2020, I was finally getting myself around to the idea of going to see somebody, and then obviously the personal pan pizza happened, so I haven't. But our main character actually took a tumble off a stage, which ended up in her having to have a surgery, which ended up in things being botched, which ended up in her having multiple different doctors and physiotherapists and all that type of thing, trying to tell her how to fix it and none of it working, and it just getting worse, and people thinking that she's faking it, and all of the things that I fear, really. The other thing that really connected me to this character is she talks a lot about these different times where she would be performing in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is my favorite city in the world. Not only did I attend fringe shows there, but I also performed in the largest neo-pagan fire festival while I was there, and basically my job while I was there was a one-woman show because I was a tour guide for 4 hours at a time. So she'd be talking about these different things about managing her pain and also reminiscing about Edinburgh, and I'm just like, is this character me? Oh god, what's happening? She works at a college teaching different theater things. They have a very small program at this college, and she's also put in charge of directing the yearly Shakespeare show. She also gets to pick the yearly Shakespeare show, but she's had to cast the same girl in all the lead roles all of these years because her family kind of funds the department. And this girl has decided that they are not doing All's Well That Ends Well. Who even knows what that show is? They want to do Mackers, and because she's her, she gets to decide this. However, because we're inside a reinterpretation of a Shakespeare show, I'll let you guess which one, and things go more of our protagonist's way. I love books that center around theater. I love that this had chronic pain representation. I love that this was a reinterpretation of a tale that many of us had to read in high school. And honestly, I feel like I should get myself a copy of this and reread it and tab up different aspects of it, which is not something that I usually feel drawn to do, but this one, there are so many just layers of things that I would really like to sit here and kind of equate. This is the character that is basically this character, and this is the character that this. And I know they won't cross over 100% because I think it was done in a very clever way. But yeah, I think I'm going to be thinking about this one for a while. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wish list. In case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!